I'm Claire Krüeger, and I am in the Collider space at the South Central Regional Library. And today we're going to be making accordion books. The materials that you will need: paper. I have some bigger, longer pieces of paper, but you can use shorter, smaller paper. I'm going to show you different ways to put it together. Also need a glue stick, very handy. Pair of scissors, very important. I have a bone folder to get good creases in my book, but you can also use a ruler or just your hands. And then for covers, I use cardboard on the inside of my covers. So you could use a cereal box, you could use a packing box if you wanted to. And then you also might think about decorating the outside. So maybe having some recycled paper or some other decorative pieces to use. So an accordion book is called that because it's sort of like an accordion. It can flex open and closed. So some of the accordion books that I make them with themes. So this one is called Pond, and it is a pond scene. And I started making them all vertical because that was something that I enjoyed, so I've kept that. Again, it's an accordion book, so it's like this. And they're all themed. We've got pond, we have party, which is a cake, many, many layered cake. I have camp, which is a campfire scene. And then I also have strata, which is fictional layers of the earth. So you can see these are not all the same size either. I started using whatever paper I kind of had laying around, trying to use up materials that I might not otherwise use. So because our book is long and it's sort of like an accordion and it can flex, I'm going to start with longer paper. Now, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to cut this paper in half. If you were using an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, that would also be fine to do. It's just going to be a little bit smaller. But I'm going to show you how you can do this with any size paper. I'm going to try to cut really carefully because the other thing about bookmaking is that if you are very careful, it's going to turn out a lot neater. So the earlier steps are very important. So if you already have long, narrow pieces of paper around for some reason, I would use those. So now I could also put these together, and I'll show you how I make a Band-Aid of paper to kind of put them together. But our step that we're going to start with is to fold it. So what's really important about accordion books is folding. And I try to, again, fold really, really neatly so that my book ends up being very clean, all the edges touch. So this is the most important part. After that, you can kind of go wild, design it however you want. I like to fill mine with color. That's my style. Now, the first fold is going to indicate how wide the rest of the book is. So the first fold that we make is going to be really important. So for this really thin accordion, my first fold was narrow. And the first fold we're going to follow the whole time. I have my paper facing away from me, the long side going out. And I am going to make this one a little bit more narrow. So I'm going to line up the sides, which is really important if you cut it straight. And then I can crease it with my finger here, or if you have a bone folder or a ruler, it's a good time to use it. So now I have this really nice crease. You can see this is the beginning of my accordion book. Because it's an accordion, if you've ever made a paper fan, you know we don't want to continue to fold forwards. We want to fold back and forth. So sometimes the way that I do this to make sure that I'm not folding forward is I'm going to flip it over. Because then I can keep folding and continue to be going in the correct direction. I've already decided what the width of my book is. So what I need to do is I will see where my edge is here. And for my next fold, I just need to line that up again. And I want to line up the sides. And I'm going to use my bone folder. So you can see I'm starting to get my zigzag shape that is a correct accordion shape. So now I want to flip it again. I always want my book or my folds that I've been making underneath. And I'm going to again line up because I'm using my first page always as a guide. And I will continue that way till I get to the end. So because I was pretty careful every time, you can see all of my pages are a relatively similar size. Now, you get to the end and you have this weird extra piece, don't cut it off. This is really important if you want to add more paper. Now, when I'm choosing the amount of pages in my accordion book, the one most important thing is that I want it to be an even number. So 6 or 8 pages. And the reason being is that if I want to put a cover on this, I want when it's folded, my front and my back page to face each other so that I can put a cover on the back of them. And so this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6 pages. So let's say you end up with 5. I would add an extra page just so when you fold it up, your front and back pages are facing each other. So I'm going to show you how I add additional pages. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my 5th one. Probably what I should do is add a page. So we get to 6. I have my extra piece. What I'm going to do is I am going to make a Band-Aid out of paper. Or actually, because I have this extra tab, this is going to be my Band-Aid. So I'm going to fold this as if it were a full page. Still following the size I set for myself at the beginning. So what I have now is this nice Band-Aid piece. What I can do is attach my paper here, and this will hold it on the back side. So I'm going to use a glue stick on my Band-Aid, and if you didn't have any extra left over, you can just cut a strip of paper and glue it on the back as well. I think it's handy to make it extra strong, and you'll never really see it if it's in the back. So I want to line this up pretty well with where my crease is. Oop, I'm going to do it again. So now I can actually just continue folding. I'm going to flip it, do another fold. But remember that you probably want to end up with even numbers of pages so that your book is able to have a really fun cover. So let's see how many we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So actually this last page might be a good stopping point. I'm going to cut this, but I could keep going. So now I have the inside of my book, and you can see that when I close it, it will face itself, which means I can put a really cool cover on the front and the back. Now, you get to fill it with whatever you want. Maybe you want it to be writing, maybe you want to glue some things inside. A lot of these are really just full of color, but I've done some other books as well. Maybe I'm collecting pressed flowers that I love. Maybe I'm collecting quotes or poems. Whatever you want to put inside of your book, it's up to you. When I am making a cover for an accordion book, I like to put some cardboard on the inside. I also like to do crayon under watercolor, so I get a nice crayon watercolor resist. So I'm using a little bit heavier paper to make this design. But you could use wrapping paper, you could use recyclable paper, you could use anything you wanted. Maybe you just want to cover it in white paper and draw on top of it. That's fine too. In making an accordion book with a cover, what you can do, and this is not quite the right size, but you want to get a piece of cardboard, and you could use a cereal box, you could use a packing box, and you want it to be slightly bigger than your accordion book. So I would probably cut a piece of cardboard, not quite this large, but I want to leave an extra. I'd probably make it a little bit thinner than this. So I would have 2 of those. You can see the thickness. I have one here and one here. Now to make a decorative piece that would cover the cardboard, I had this fun painted paper laying around, and I thought it would be nice as a back cover for a project. So I cut it almost like an envelope. I cut these sides straight, and this side kind of came in so that my corners were not very bulky. You can see that my corners are pretty neat. We've got this diagonal, I have this straight line. I would glue this, and maybe you want to use white glue or something a little stronger than a glue stick, but a glue stick would work too. Just remember it's about the pressure, not necessarily the amount of glue. So glue this in and glue this in, and then this will cover it really nicely. And then you have a little bit of a diagonal corner here, which would work very well. It's going to look really, really neat. And the reason we make it a little bit bigger than our accordion books is so we have space to protect it. So if I look at this cover, you can see my nice little corners here. And then I glued my first page around. So when we have extra decorative cover page, we can cover it with our first page of our accordion book. So when I'm ready to put the inside of my accordion book, when it's fully designed and it's ready to be attached to the cover, I'm going to put glue all over the back of this. Now, if I'm using lighter paper, a glue stick is probably going to be better so it doesn't wrinkle. But I have this nice flat surface and I can cover the edges. So this isn't quite the right size, but I would put this glue here and attach it here. And so then we have an accordion book that is going to have a lovely cover and it's going to be very protected. I hope that you have fun making an accordion book of your own. And I hope that you will join me in my Zoom workshop on November 18th. We'll be talking about zines and making them.